Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I've got a review for the final new leader class toy in Transformers Siege, and this is Astrotrain, the triplechanger. Astrotrain follows the trend of the other Siege leaders in being a roughly Voyager-sized toy with some sort of like armor-up gimmick, extra accessories, which has been not the most well-received thing. And I'm guilty of not being a huge fan of this approach myself. Kind of rather get these guys as Voyagers and save the leader price point for bigger characters, but oh well. So this guy is very cool looking. He's made to be a much more faithful interpretation of the Generation 1 character than the recent Titans Return toy was, which got the robot mode more or less down, but the vehicle modes were much more sci-fi in appearance than your typical classic train and like NASA space shuttle. So if you see my reviews, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at the toy's packaging, we'll look at Astrotrain's instructions, we'll view all of his different modes, and do some comparisons with the Titans Return toy, see how they stack up against each other. And then at the end, of course, I will give my final thoughts. So Astrotrain comes in the standard liter size box, and you can see he very much struggles to fill that box. Yeah, it's getting really hard to justify these $50 purchases when they're so small looking. But we'll see if he's worth it in the end. Mine has his head cocked to the side for some reason. Not sure why. You can see his little like coal tinder box thing in there. I think that's his guns down there. And overall looks very nice and detailed. Lots of paint on him. It's always fun. Here's his artwork right here. He looks very cool. Looks a little manic charging into battle. I can't tell if he's like yelling or laughing. Either way, very, very disturbing looking. Super creepy face. On the back, we have the renders of his 3 different modes. And it looks like it's saying that it takes 17 steps to go from locomotive to space shuttle, and then 19 steps from space shuttle to robot mode. And then down here shows the space shuttle hooked up to the launching pad there. And I'm going to spoil this a bit, but if you look closely at the connectors on this, they're the same connectors that are used for Omega Supreme from this toy line, as well as pretty much all of the new Earthrise toys that are coming out. This toy is also going to be released under the Earthrise banner, as far as we know, with no changes to the toy itself. And that's caused a bit of speculation from people that this toy may have actually been meant for the Earthrise line until it got pushed forward into Siege, probably just to help fill it out, extend it a little bit. And aesthetically it makes sense, right? It's got 2 Earth-based vehicle modes, he's got the connectors. Only thing that he has that's unique to Siege is the battle damage, which, that could have been a last minute change. So we'll see what happens between this release and the new one. Maybe they'll remove the battle damage for the other one. Who knows? And here we have Astrotrain's instruction sheet. Got his number here, big old render of him there. And this is a pretty beefy sheet. Opens into quite the novel here. See all this. So the first part shows you how to combine him with his coal box into his and his weapons into this like super mode, this brute mode. And the next bit shows you how to transform him from robot mode to space shuttle, how to attach the weapons. Next part is transforming his little coal box into either kind of like a landing bay or a launch base for the shuttle mode. And then lastly here you have the transformation from shuttle to locomotive. Some side info here shows you that you can store all of his weapons inside of the coal box there. So makes for some nice neat storage. And then of course your cross cells, compatibilities, all that fun stuff. And going back to this side for a second, we've got his weapons loadout. And he's kind of brought back the tradition of having modular weapons, that can combine together. He's got quite a few. He's pretty well armed here. So first you have these two blasters that are basically identical, they're mirrors of each other. And these are called Ionic Displacer Blasters. And that name is a reference to his original weapon, which is the Ionic Displacer Rifle. This Gatling gun thing here is called a Destabilizer Cannon. Down here, this other gun of his is an Astro Blaster, very original. This little missile pod looking thing is called a Turbo Core Derailer. I guess, you know, because train, sure, I guess. And this big old combined weapon right here is called an Omni-Force Orbital Cannon. And it's just this massive cannon he wields. It's very cool. All right, and starting out Astrotrain himself, we're gonna take a look at his train mode. And you can see it's quite long, especially when combined with his coal box in the back here. And it allows him to be very heavily armed as well. So the main body of the train is, you know, from here forward. And you can see, for the first time since his original toy, it's done in the old school locomotive design. And you got your little smokestack up here. Got that like boiler engine looking thing in the front. I'm not an expert on trains, can you tell? Yeah, just got like the old school wheel assemblies over here. And, you know, overall looks pretty solid. Uses a lot of purple. Not really sure what the purpose of these little nubs are. Oh, you know, it's probably to lock something in place. The coal box here is attached via this little like rotating piece on it. So has some leeway, though it's not important for this mode. But it rolls extremely well. The wheels get plenty of traction, they're nice and even. So we did a really good job with this thing. And I'm just really digging it. Now, if you want to remove the coal box, you can. You just have to unplug it from the little engine booster things in the back. And it's a fairly tight connection. You want to kind of wriggle it loose, like so. And that's what the rear of the train looks like, which is, you know, obviously the booster engines for the space shuttle. It's got this nice little painted detail here, some windows. You got this steam line, I'm assuming, running all through there like you would on a real train, which is really neat. And overall, it's just a very strong vehicle mode. The box here is very solid. You know, it's quite heavy. It's made up of these folding panels and everything. And this is that piece I was telling you about. It does rotate freely. It's got 3 little 5mm pegs on it. I would be careful when pulling this thing out of the back of the train, because even though this connection's really tight, this thing's just kind of on this little pin, I suppose, and you see it kind of wriggle around a lot. And I would just say be careful not to pull too hard. You might break it off and ruin your toy. So time will tell if we start having issues with that. But overall, just a really neat accessory. It may look cheap without holding it, but like I said, this is very solid. And once I open it up, you're gonna see just how detailed and involved this thing is. Speaking of opening it up, I'll show you something really cool. You can remove all these weapons. Them weapons there. Take them off. Let's go ahead and take the Turbo Core Derailer off the Astrotrain. And we're just gonna open this guy up a little bit. Okay. So that's what the inside looks like. Now we're gonna put all these together. The first thing you wanna do is stick the little derailleur down here like that. Make sure it's pressed all the way down, it's nice and straight. Then you're going to take the 2 larger weapons. You're gonna push them down, but not all the way in. You're gonna push them down until they just sit on top of the little missile pod. Doohickey, majiggy, mathingy. These you are going to plug into here, like so. Actually, no, scratch that. face the other way. That was a test you passed, by the way. Plug them in facing away. And you just go and close everything back up. Make sure the weapons don't get in the way there. Might have to adjust them a little bit, get it all to work. They should plug in just fine. There you go. Alright. So if you did it right, it should all close up nice and neatly. And those guns end up filling in those holes there, make it look a little more complete. So it's a really great storage option for the weapons. So if you want to have this attached and have a cleaner, train mode, you can do that. So very, very cool. And it's already shaping up to be a very nice accessory. A lot more impressive, in my opinion, than Shockwave and his accessories. But that's just me. Right now, for some fun, we get to compare Astrotrain's train mode to his past incarnations. So going from left to right, you have the G1 mold, though this is the Platinum edition, so it's got a weird color scheme that doesn't match any of his previous schemes. You have the Classics toy, which is more of a modern bullet train locomotive. You have the Titan's Return toy, which is like a futuristic armored battle train thing. And then you got Siege Astrotrain. Now interestingly, the Titan's Return train mode would be a much better fit for the Siege line than the very Earth-based locomotive that the new Siege toy has. And there is I think it's been confirmed, don't quote me on it, that this Astrotrain was designed for Earthrise, which does use Earth-based vehicle modes, and then just got shunted into Siege to pad it out a bit, which would explain, why his vehicle modes look more like they come from Earth than, his do. But yeah, you got all sorts of different Astrotrains. The new guy obviously doing his best to emulate the original toy here, the whole locomotive aesthetic. Oh, and a little side note, if you're hoping to get you a G1 Astrotrain sometime soon, but not in the weird colors, more classic colors, he is getting a vintage re-release, I believe sometime in 2020, so yeah, he won a fan vote. So be on the lookout for that if you want the OG Astrotrain. Right now, we're going to transform Astrotrain into his space shuttle mode. Fun, fun. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to lift these panels up right here. Just kind of leave them out for a second. The instructions, the way they have you do it, actually create some clearance issues. So just leave them out. You're going to flip these all the way back, like so. Out of the way. And then you can flip these the rest of the way up, like that. Make sure they plug in securely. Now we're going to split this front section here. So these panels are going to come out like that. I'm going to leave them out, and then you also want to split the end like this. So you can see that the train front becomes the space shuttle front. So this bit you collapse all the way, and then you'll flip this 180 degrees like that. Get the nose cone to come out. Do the same thing here, flip it. And then that little smokestack bit is two halves that just fold in, like so. So I'll just make sure you close it up and press that together. And fold these panels back in, like so. Make sure that closes nice and securely. My copy tends to have these halves separate a little bit. It's not that noticeable, but fairly annoying. Hey look, it's our guy. All right, now these wings, you're gonna unfold. So these ends, these wingtips are pegged in. Unpeg them, straighten them out, and you're just going to fold the wings out for the nice and flat. Next, you have to lift these sides up. You're going to flip them out using little tabs to gain some purchase. This whole chest bit, flip around. Now, these sides, you're gonna kind of invert them to where they go in like that. Now we actually have to pull this booster piece off for a second. Like that, just kind of move it out of the way, because this tail fin here has to rest in some ridges in between what are his elbows in robot mode. So make sure it's in there, and yeah, kind of have to make sure it stays in place while you reattach the boosters, because otherwise it tends to pop out. All right, and this is Astrotrain's Space Shuttle mode. So, in my opinion, it is the weakest of his 3 modes, which it's by no means bad. You know, it's not like a terrible alt mode, but where it really suffers is right here on the top, where it's just very, very open. And, you know, it is the price to pay for being a triple changer, especially one that's trying to nail 2 realistic looking alt modes. So this is where he suffers the most. It looks like he's been damaged. You know, he just lost his part of his hull there, which is a shame. His battle damage really shines here. You can see all this scraping effect, which looks very realistic. Looks very much like scraped metal, which is very nice. He doesn't have any like dedicated landing gear or anything. He just utilizes the wheels. So that's how he rolls around here. And overall, he's you know, he's very cool. Makes for a neat little space shuttle. And of course, you can attach his weapons. So like a little missile pod thing, just plug in there on its own. The 2 blasters, the twin blasters here, gotta plug into his wings. Like that, like that. Might want to plug those in first because missile pod kind of gets in the way. And then lastly, his bigger weapons just go on the top here. And that is his fully armed space shuttle mode. Looking pretty cool. Getting ready to do some battle there. Now I mentioned before how his coal box can interact with the space shuttle. I'll show you that now. First thing you do is unfold it, as if you were putting the weapons in it. Get my dog's hair off of there. FYI, if you don't want fur all over your house, do not get a golden retriever. They're kind of the worst for that. Anywho, so you just fold it out, lay everything flat, but keep this little panel here just kind of pointing up. And now the side panels have a hinge on them. You just bend them like that. And I mean, look at all the sculpted detail on this thing. Look at the panels. They got like multiple plastic panels pressed together. This really is an impressive little accessory. I really like this thing. Now there's a flaw with it though. There's a design flaw. This is supposed to sit completely flat, but as you see, it does not. This does not push all the way down and stay down. And it's something other people have noticed, and you know, it's a valid criticism. They kind of dropped the ball when they were designing this, and they, you know, trying to make sure that there were all the right clearances. So you do have to deal with this sticking up a little bit, which is annoying. But anyway, you just go ahead and you place Astrotrain on here. Now there isn't any point at which he actually plugs into this, at least not that I've been able to find. It just seems that he just kind of sits on it. So this is what you get. So if we just want to display his space shuttle mode just kind of docked and hanging out, you can do that. And it looks pretty good, pretty nice and solid. Kind of gives you a little mini playset. Or if you want to make this a launch base, go take him off. All you do is you flip this down like so. Make sure it goes all the way down, like that. Swing these back out, kind of like a little X pattern there. And then you just take our guy and plug him in the booster holes again. Get him on there nice and snug. And there you go. Now this is really cool. I like this a little more than the launch bay mode, because it's just much more dynamic and it actually gives him a dedicated place to actually attach to this thing. What's also very neat about this, if you haven't already noticed, these ends here, they have some connectors on them that might look a little familiar. And that's because they're the same type used by Omega Supreme, who I reviewed recently. So, if you haven't already checked that review out, it's one of my longer ones, real labor of love. But anyway, this is called the Air Lock System, which is a system that's going to be pretty much universal in the new toy line Earthrise. Again, leading to the idea that Astrotrain was designed for that line originally. Though it's not guaranteed. I mean, Omega has him and he's part of Siege, and he was always meant to be part of Siege, so who knows. But it's very cool because that means he can attach to Omega's rocket base, kind of lift these ramps up, attach it there, or he can attach to all the other Earthrise toys. I mean, you can really go nuts. I mean, in my review, I showed like the big Transformer city I built with Omega and everything he was compatible with. Well, he's as he was backwards compatible, he's also gonna be forward compatible with Earthrise. So you're gonna be able to connect basically like everything from Titan's Return forward, which is really, really neat. I love that they're not forgetting about the older toy lines, the last batch of generations. All right, now for more comparison, here are the other Astrotrains in their shuttle mode. And now the dynamic switches up a little bit because the Classics Astrotrain actually does a pretty good job of maintaining the same ult mode. It still looks like a NASA type space shuttle. So, matches a little more than it does in train mode. And then you still have Titan's Return, which again is a very futuristic alien looking vehicle. Looks more like a spaceship than a space shuttle, and just kind of doing its own thing. And I don't want to sound like I'm bashing that toy. I think Titan's Return Astrotrain is actually a very solid figure. He wasn't scratching the itch people had for an updated, G1 Astrotrain. And I get that. He does fall kind of flat, particularly in his alternate modes when it comes to that effort. Which is why, the character was remade again just 2 toy lines later. All right, now for the big reveal, we're gonna go ahead and transform Astrotrain to his robot mode. So let's start by detaching the boosters there. Flip his whole chest area back down, press it in like that. Put these side panels back in, really nice and flush. Go ahead and just kind of pull this down and out of the way. Those arms you're gonna flip down, and these purple panels lock in here. So you gotta push till you feel a click, like that. Same thing on this side, push all the way in. Now you're gonna straighten his elbows out. They are on a double bend, which is always nice, right? And you gotta flip out his fists, which should just be able to do with a fingernail. And they were too hard. All right. Rotate the arms, the biceps 180. So see them come together. I'm gonna flip these out to the side. Pull these panels out in the way, like so. I'm gonna separate these legs, and I'm gonna bring these down to cover up the shuttle nose cone, like that. Now these, you're gonna rotate them there on this, like that, and then press them back. So you get this like slanted panel going on. Now his feet are right here. You just flip them all the way forward. Make sure they little. Oh yeah, we're wondering about those little bits, right? So it plugs right into the side of his leg there. So do the same thing here. Be careful not to scratch that purple paint on the top if you can help it. All right, and his whole wing backpack area is to flip down. So bring it all the way down, it's nice and firmly in there, and then push this thing down on its double hinge until that snaps into place. Don't know why that was so loud. Thought I broke it for a second. I just figured, right? And here we go. This is Astrotrain in his robot mode. Now you can see he is very, very detailed robot. He's got all sorts of panel lining and bits and pieces all over him, especially in the upper torso and the arms and all that. His head is very nicely painted, nice purple color on the helmet, the yellow stripe. It is on a ball joint. It's got a fair amount of range. Turn, look up and down a bit. You got your old hinge and swivel combo for the shoulders, bicep swivel, double elbows, no wrist swivel. Oh, you know what? I forgot to flip these down. Don't be like me, be smart, kids. So yeah, it gives us a little like skirt flap thing, and also reveals that cool wing detail that he's known for having. All right, so now that I've fixed this, all right, so he's got the hinge and swivel on the waist, and these flaps, allow more movement because they can swing upward. Fix that. Can't swing back very far because of clearance issues, so just be aware of that. He does have thigh swivel at the top of his thigh. He's got a single knee bend, and he has ankle tilt. It's a little tight, but it's there. And then he also does have a waist swivel, believe it or not. You get a full 180 out of it, so that's very cool. It's all the way around. So yeah, he's a very solid, siege figure. Meets all the right standards. His wings can move around, but they're not really supposed to. They're supposed to stay flat like that. The booster on the back looks really nice. Got all this mechanical detail here. And yeah, I just love it. He looks fantastic. He's about the size of a Siege Voyager, so he's not very big, though, he's meant to scale with the other characters based on the cartoon scale. And, that's obviously led to some people not being crazy about the price point. All right, so now we're going to transform Astrotrain into his armored up mode. So what we want to do is take his coal box, you're going to lift the top up like so, and then you're actually going to slide it off. Just grab it, and this piece is detached from this little railing, and then they separate. And they become little like height boosters for him. Open this for a moment. And you're going to take this piece, and you're going to spin it 180 degrees. And then you're going to press it down in here like so. And you just close the side panels back up. And this becomes a backpack for Astrotrain. Really, it's just a big empty box, but whatever. So, we take our guy, put these little height boosters on him, and just plug into his feet. They're a really good fit too. His feet fit perfectly into these, so it looks very natural. There's no wriggling around or anything. They just slot right in there. So, looks very cool. Digging it? Now, before I go and put the backpack on him, do the weapons, because the backpack makes him very back heavy, and his knees and waist aren't the strongest joints, so he tends to flop back a little bit. So first we're going to do what the instructions have us do. And we're going to attach the weapons like so. Little missile pod derailer thing goes on this forearm, just plugs in. The twin cannons here plug into his shoulders. Like so. And then he just wields the other guns in his hands. Like this. So it gives him this very, fully loaded look. Makes him look very dangerous. He's gonna blow away some Autobots. Also helps put some weight in front of him. So I can go ahead and attach this now without fear. So go ahead, make sure the pegs line up with the holes on his back. Plug it in. And it just kind of sits like that. It kind of reminds me of Shockwave's backpack in that it doesn't seem to serve any kind of purpose other than just adding mass to him. So it's probably my least favorite part of this mode. Just doesn't really seem to do anything. But, it works. So I may need to get creative with the poses. Lean him forward a little bit, whatever you gotta do. Just to keep him from falling back. But yeah, this is his fully armored mode. And it makes him look very cool. little cluttered for my tastes, but it works pretty well. Makes them dangerous. However, my preference here is to combine all of his weapons into that orbital super mega death, mega cannon death. Pretty sure that was the official name, give or take. So you take these off of him. I'm good, he's standing up. And we're gonna put all these together. So the first thing you do, take these two, put them together like this. And you take your big old Gatling gun looking thing and plug it onto the back of this one. So you take the two side cannons and put them on the side. Straighten it out. And you get this big old honking cannon that Astrotrain can wield. And I like it. I prefer this over the whole fully armed thing. I just think it looks fantastic. He's got this big old gun, and it looks a lot more natural than most of the other like combined weapons that the Siege toys had. Helps that all the weapons are the same color. Just gives it a nice cohesion. So yeah, this whole setup here does help bulk Astrotrain out. Helps kind of sort of justify the leader class price point. All right, here's our look at all the Astrotrains in the robot mode. And you can see here they are all quite different from one another, though they all hit, the same beats. They all have wings on their back. They all have some sort of this, fin design going on here. Though you can see that while the Classics Astrotrain replicates the original toy by using an actual, fin structure across his chest, the latter two use the way it was portrayed in the cartoon, where it's just kind of a flat design lower down on the abdomen there. The Classics toy is more or less in line with the color scheme of the original Astrotrain. Again, not this color scheme, but the actual one. The US one anyway. These two are mostly based on the cartoon color scheme. Though, as you can see, the Titans Return one, for whatever reason, they went with a much lighter gray than they should have. I mean, it's almost white, so I guess they were trying to strike a, somewhere in between. If you wanted something more accurate, there's always the Japanese version, which does use a much darker gray. It's much closer in color to this one. So, as far as a cartoon accurate Astrotrain, this is the way to go. They did a phenomenal job in matching up his designs in all three of his modes to the cartoon. As far as his exact color layout, it is based on a layout using the cartoon, but that fluctuated a fair bit. There were some times where it was colored more similarly to the Titans Return toy with purple wings or a gray helmet. So, they just kind of picked one and went with it, and honestly, I think the result looks really nice. I think his wings kind of they look better being mostly gray instead of just all purple. And yeah, I think in terms of overall quality, this is the best Astrotrain toy ever made. He is a lot shorter than the Titans Return one, but that one is also quite tall for a modern Voyager, so it's kind of cheating. And I have to say, I do like the fact that this combined weapon does seem to harken back to the sheer ludicrous size of the G1 toy's gun compared to the rest of his body. I think that was the intention, maybe. Or I'm just looking for something that isn't there, I don't know. But I plan on keeping him like this, because I think it's a good callback to the original design there. And now for our final group shot, you gotta put him with his two triplechanger buddies. So here's Titans Return Blitzwing and Octone, or Octane. And unfortunately, the short man syndrome doesn't go away with these two. He's still quite a bit shorter than them. It's not as bad as his, Titans Return self, but it is noticeable. Even without, the extra little bits sticking up, they're still a good head taller than him at least. So that's a shame. You would think the guy that, turns into a space shuttle, at the very least, wouldn't be the smallest of the three. but this is, what we have. I imagine it'll bother some people, the scale issues, but this has been kind of a consistent issue with Siege operating at a slightly smaller scale than, what came right before it, for the most part. But they still look good together. I mean, the height thing, it bothers me a little bit, but they still, they color match very well. All of them having a lot of purple and different shades. And something I noticed, which is actually kind of funny, is that these two both have some sort of a nose cone tucked up inside of their shins there. So I wonder if that was a bit of shared engineering, if they used this idea to help make this toy. Who knows? So, rambled on about him enough. Let's get to the final thoughts on Astrotrain. Astrotrain, just like the other Siege leaders, does still kind of feel like a slap in the face for the price. I think he's better justified than, some of them, especially Shockwave. I always felt that Shockwave had the weakest showing as far as, extra bits to justify the price point. At least in the case of Ultra Magnus and the Galaxy Upgrade Optimus, there was some sort of a precedent for them having an armor up ability. Obviously, Astrotrain doesn't have that precedent, but the armor that he does have is much more solid. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of panels and detail and stuff on it, so it just feels more fleshed out than the Shockwave armor. He's got a whole bunch of guns, which work very well together, and they make this really good-looking super cannon here that I'm a big fan of. So, do I recommend this toy? Yes. Even at its price point, I would say if you had to pick a Siege leader to go in on, this is probably the one. I think he's absolutely fantastic in all three of his modes. Again, the Space Shuttle is the weakest one, but it's not terrible. It just looks a little bit incomplete. But you could say that about probably any triplechanger. The fact that he's got the little tinderbox, the coal box thing on the back for the train is really cool. The fact that it turns into like a launch bay and all that stuff is really, really neat. And it does give him some really cool looking boots too. The articulation's obviously way better than any other Astrotrain toy I've ever received. And if you want something that does follow the cartoon design, I mean, he is dead on. So yes, despite the price, I think, if you have the money to spare, you should pick this guy up. He's a much better toy than the Titan's Return one. Just looks better in every mode, and I had a lot of fun with him. And part of me wonders, with this new, design philosophy with the engineering, if they were to remake the other two, if they could improve on them as much as him. Not that I really want that to happen. I'd rather those slots on the shelf go to some characters that maybe haven't gotten love recently. But there's that part of me that's curious to see what they can do with it. Maybe give us an Octane where the cab and the trailer are actually articulated from each other. It's not one solid piece, but we'll see. So what do you think of this Astrotrain toy? Do you think he's worth the price? Is he your favorite version? Did you like another version more than him? Love to know what you think in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Let YouTube know that you are enjoying this content. If you want to see more of my content, make sure to hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. And thank you for joining me for this look at Siege / Earthrise Astrotrain, because they will be the same toy. And with all that said, I will see you next time.